Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with Derek and Craig. We're going to talk a little bit about sight reading today. I'm already on chat right here, and I see Gavin just piped in there on chat. And good morning to you too, Gavin. But yeah, we can talk about sight reading. A lot of these topics, we bring up again because there's just it's a bunch of information, and everybody has their own way of sight reading and what they're looking for, depending on what part of the country or what part of the world you're in. And a lot of times we don't even realize, if you're newer to the hobby or even an experienced hunter, you may not realize the town they live in has a bunch of history to it, and it may not be readily known or whatever. They may have the main events, but that has happened in your area, but there's always stuff that was there before. It seems like, I'm finding that over, where I live at down here in Florida, that there was, everybody thinks it's all beaches and palm trees. Well, it's pretty thick, rough land, to get through. I mean, viney and palmetto bushes and just, it can be pretty thick down here. And you don't know what was here, like, prior. A lot of this property was owned by individuals, ranchers or whatever, especially in Central Florida. And then all of a sudden they'll start clearing it and building stuff, it seems like. We have, I've noticed this more, I guess, in the last 10 or 12 years, how much they can transform an area so quickly. Up near, near Coleman, I guess it's North Sumter County or whatever, they have what they call the villages. They built this stuff, this big housing additions, more or less retirement communities, stuff like that. It's a huge, huge development. They've actually taken up, I think, part of 3 counties or something like that with this project, and they're starting to move south towards Bushnell. And I mean, not even 2 years ago, Craig, I go out here and all it is farm fields, ranches, cattle, that kind of thing, and then it seems like 6 months later, it's a full-blown housing addition with, all the amenities you can think of. They've changed the roads around, so it's pretty much been erased. Anything there, you can't hunt it anymore. But in the meantime, when they're clearing, you can actually get in there with a metal detector a lot of times. It's been thinned out, and, you find a lot of good stuff. It gets, well, you've seen it in Alexandria. You talk about it a lot on there.
Well, I saw it in Northern Virginia, and in general, when I was a kid, Northern Virginia wasn't that big compared to what it is now. It's like, it's expanding like a city. It's and then it along the Potomac River going south, up north, it was already pretty much built, but below Alexandria, it wasn't, built up as much, but like we used to, all the like George Washington's army with the French, they marched down Route 1 along the Potomac.
Right.
There was camps, early war camps for the Confederates. Yankees came in there later. They were on all the creeks and all along the Potomac with batteries. There was like a lot of boats going up and down. Alexandria had become the biggest port, so there was a lot of boat action, and they started firing. The Yankees had on the other side of the river, in the Maryland side, they had batteries, camps. I've hunted over there too, and that was really rural. That was just all farms and stuff, and I hunted up there. I hadn't hunted up there in a long time, and this guy took me back there to some of those old camps, testing the Bliss tool, and I was amazed at, and you could see where the property tax on Maryland, it's a rich state, but for some reason they just, the property tax, it's going up and up and up until these people can't afford the farms.
Yeah.
And it,
forces them out.
I hadn't been there probably 20 years, and, I was looking, we were driving through the area, and I just noticed, where there used to be, huge tracts of woods, just gone, and just, a bunch of houses and townhouses and stuff. But Stafford County is the same way. The great thing is if you could get in there when they bulldozed, and if you're one of the first people, it was like a virgin camp or a virgin house site.
Oh yeah, it's like going to a candy store. Man, shoot, you get all kinds of stuff in there.
Yeah, my best sites over the years were after they bulldozed. I remember around the Texas camp in the Wright House, we think it was a tavern.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 3.5, 4 years up there, wandered the woods the first year or so, and then Mike McAdams and Howard and I were up there one day hunting, and we saw these trucks coming through the woods, and I looked down and they saw them. It looked like they were looking at plot maps and stuff. So I walked down and introduced myself, and they saw the detector and they said, what's up here? And I said, there's a Texas camp right over there on that ridge. And they go, really? Texas? And I go, yeah, it's a Civil War camp. And I said, up on this other ridge is a house site, and is it okay if we hunt up here? And he goes, oh yeah, you can hunt up here all you want. Just don't, come up, just stay away from the when they're knocking down trees and stuff, and stay away from the heavy equipment. So that place ended up, I'd hunted it for over a year, I think, and then ended up hunting it for another 3 years and found stuff all the way up to the end. And there's, at last I heard, there was like 6,500 homes there,
mm-hmm.
and they all look the same. All the streets look the same. I would get lost in that little subdivision. Well, it's not a little subdivision. It goes probably about a mile, but it is just a sprawl. There was a big controversy during the housing crisis in the early 2000s. People were buying up houses and putting mortgages on other houses and trying to flip them, and it worked at first, but then it went crazy. Some of the houses got overpriced,
right,
and they couldn't sell them, and people lost their butts, and the houses are, they're cheaply made. They look good when they're new, but they're not really built that well, they're just jammed together.
Right.
I asked guys, when they were, when I was talking to them to get permission, I said, how many homes are coming in there? And the guy goes, as many as they can jam together.
Yep. That's the way it is down here sometimes.
I talked to the guy that was the chief excavator, and he was saying, he said, see those hills? They wanted me to take those hills down 60 feet. I've never done that before, that deep,
Yep.
He said they want this whole thing just cleaned out because there was all these ridges. It's like you get closer to the river, you find all these ridges, little finger ridges and stuff.
Right.
All along the creeks, and some places you can see where it used to be a creek and it kind of dried up over the years, and then the creek kind of came at a different angle or something, and like with the site reading, I kind of look to the high spots, especially along the creeks and the rivers. You don't want to be, down low, real close where you get flooded out when you have a house. Those were uncertain times. Most people that started coming in there in the early 1700s, they didn't know much about the weather or anything else in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
They were pretty new to this continent, but it must have been great exploring because, it was like an untouched wilderness. And, I heard that the trees are so thick along where, this area where I was hunting originally that it would take like 6 hours to get a couple hundred yards. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Crazy. And, eventually what they found was they found game trails and Indian trails and started following them out, and,
right.
And most of them were along the creeks because that's where the Indians, they that's how they got all their, they hunted along the creeks and camped along the creeks, had their, villages and stuff.
Yeah.
So there was a mixture of stuff, the funny thing is where you find that, like the tavern was where they found most of the arrowheads and stuff. They weren't as many down where the Texas camp was, which was, basically about maybe 100 yards away from the hill where there's kind of a valley in between the Texas camp and the Wright House. But,
right.
That place was, I found, like on the Wright House, I found over 600 buttons. And this is after, this place had been hunted for 35 years before I got into it. It was a camp that nobody could find, and I read about it in this book called Relic Hunter by Howard Crouch. He talked about how these people knew it was somewhere in this area, and they ended up renting a plane and flying over and found it by flying over it. They actually rented a Piper Cub or something. And so it was found in the late 60s, early 70s, I believe. And I talked to veterans that first got into that camp, and they said there was so many coins. There was a fair amount of gold coins found. And these guys came up from Texas, they had all this stuff in their pockets, from coming up. And there's a lot of unique stuff found, but I think there was only one Texas plate found, and there was a few Republic of Texas buttons found. There was only one found that I know of after they started bulldozing. But there was two gold coins I saw come out of that site. One was a $1 gold piece, and the other one was a $2.50 gold piece. And I got, I think I got 5 Spanish coins, and I got 9 cut pieces. And I got, like half cents. I think I got a farthing, King George the second farthing, a couple King George thirds. I'm not sure if I got a Virginia half set on that site or not. And I've gotten 2 of them, but I think I might have gotten one on that site. I'm not sure, but on the Texas side, I heard a $1 gold piece came out of that side, and then at the Wright House. I was up there the day that I heard this guy screaming, and we kept, it was a real windy day, and I kept thinking, I hear somebody screaming. I take my headphones off, didn't hear anything, and then a couple hours later, I came up the hill, and I think I had a cut real that day, and this guy comes running up to me. It's a really good relic hunter I've used to see all the time up there, and he says, "You won't believe it." He goes, "I've never found a gold coin. My brother-in-law just found a gold coin."
Yeah.
So I ran over and I said, "Can I see it?" And he goes, "Yeah, man." So it had like the mint luster on it. I think it was 1853, $2.50 gold piece. And I said, "Man."
Jeez.
But they were up there one day, and I found this button, and I didn't have my glasses with me, and I was sure. I was kind of thinking it was a USA entwined, and they came walking up, and I just dug I dug a convex eagle button. I think it was a navy, and I dug another little buckle that I think might have been from the late 1600s. But I was like, they cut like this, I don't know, this square area out of the side of the road that went down toward the creek, and it was just all this loose dirt in there and everything. And I'd take this pewter button, and they came walking up, and I pulled this button out, and I said, I can't see this, but I think this might be good. And I saw this guy's eyes got really big, and I said, So it is. So it is a USA twine, and the guy said, "Oh my God, it is." And I said, "Man, that was like a super bucket list." And I went on. I knew there probably had to be another one back there somewhere, and so I just, I was just going back to that spot, and they would like bulldoze through, and there'd be all that they put like a trench through, and I would actually take the dirt that they piled up and spread it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it took an hour to spread all the dirt out, but man, there was so many buttons, and I had days where I found three Spanish silver coins, in a day. It's just one of those sites where you found, I'd usually find at least 10 buttons every time I went. I had one day, I think, I saw my friend McAdams. He pulls across the construction site, and he had I think he had a $50,000 BMW SUV. He had his father-in-law in the car, and they pulled up and they saw me. They came over and he pointed over to this hill, and I said, "Yeah, I'm getting ready to go over there." And he said something, and I said, I probably will dig at least 15 or 20 buttons in a cut real up there. Just that's all brand new. And I said, everywhere they've done that, I've gone up there and found, that's about what I find. And so he called me later, and I said, "Man, I had a really good day." I said, "I got a real, but I also got like 33 buttons off that one site and a couple of pieces of shoe buckle."
Yeah.
But when they'd scrape, some of the stuff was deep. I mean, some of it was as deep as 4 feet in the ground. Mike Kelly and I were walking through this one area one time, and it had just been scraped, and I was looking down on the ground. It was just clay, and I had the Nautilus, and I had it over my shoulder walking through the area, and I saw Mike up ahead, and he's swinging along the ground, and he starts digging, and I walk up, and I said, "Man, are you digging anything?" And he said, "It's all clay." And he said, "Yeah, I just dug 3 buttons." I said, "Really?" So I turned the machine on, and I started popping buttons all over the place. And then I saw like a tip of a white piece of quartz, and I pulled it up, and it was an arrowhead. And that place, it was weird. It was a drop-off down to like almost like a retaining pond that they built back in the colonial times. And all down that hill, it was so steep you almost slid down the hill sideways. But there was just buttons on all those hills. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Huh. That's cool.
I knew one guy that in 6 hours he dug 90 buttons, and I was digging on the hill about 100 yards away, and I could see this guy, and I was like, "God, that guy's digging like crazy over there," and I didn't want to go over there and encroach on him or anything. And so kind of at the end of the day, I was kind of walking back to the car, and he walked up, and he said, "Man," he goes, "I saw you over there digging. You dig anything?" And I said, "I got about 20 buttons, a few, shoe buckle pieces."
Right.
He said, "Oh, you didn't dig any reals today?" And I was, because all these guys were like, they were getting so upset because I was digging, I was getting so many reals and stuff out of there. But I said, "Nah," and I said, "You didn't get any up on that hill you were digging?" And he said, "No, but I got 90 buttons." I was like, "Wow." So I thought, man, I'm going to go up there in the morning. So I got up there about 7 and got up on that hill, and I was up there for about 2 hours, maybe 3 hours before he got there. And I only got 4 buttons, but I got a cut real. And so he walks up and he goes, "Man, I saw you up there, and did you get any reals?" I go, "Yeah, I got one." I showed it to him, and he was like, "Oh my God." He goes, "I didn't go up high enough." And I said, "Well, it was pretty dangerous almost getting up that high, because it was pretty much straight up and down, and I was like about 30 feet off the ground."
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll do just about anything to get into, you start digging stuff, and you don't worry about danger much. You know, you kind of in a frenzy, you know, and especially on these construction sites. If you don't get in there, you know, I'd be in there a lot of times. I was on construction sites where there was literally 50, 100 people, you know, digging. And sometimes, you know, you'd be out there and then I kind of look around and see like groups of people, you know, in big circle just sitting around, you know, just standing there talking, you know, not hunting. You
Right.
start going, yeah, people aren't finding much, you know, and I would start going back over the spots where they'd been. You know, you could kind of tell where there's more dig holes and stuff. And
Right,
those
right.
are the spots. You know, if you're on a spot, don't get discouraged. At least go over those sites again, because people miss stuff. I watch people all the time when I'm metal detecting, and you know, when you got a big group of people, I would say about 80% of the people don't have that great a swing rate, and they hunt too fast.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely do. Yeah.
I hunted right behind a father and son team, you know, and you know, they weren't digging anything. They were swinging, but they weren't hunting. And right behind them, I got a nice signal. I mean, it was a moderate signal, and I started digging, and I dug down maybe 5 inches, and it was a New York coat button with gold all over it. And I guess the father looked around and said, "Hey, did you just dig something?" And I said, "Yeah, I got a New York coat button." Oh, they got so mad. You know, but that's the way it goes. I mean, you know, I never get mad. I just hunt harder.
Right.
You know, it makes me hunt harder. That's all it does to me. You know, it's just part of the deal. I mean, you can miss something by an inch, you know, with your swing, and you know, this is the way it goes. Especially on a big, you know, it's hard to hunt a construction site and grit it exactly down. You know,
No, you can't. You just got to be able to cover a lot of ground thoroughly, methodically. You know, that's where the bigger coils come in too. You know, it's like hunting a beach. You got so many, you can't sight read it because you only know where you're finding stuff. Really, they've already bulldozed it. This is about covering the ground thoroughly, the best you can, and you know, gritting it. Unless you just have a lot of time, usually it doesn't take them long. You know, at least down here, you know, you got to get in there and get it done because, well, you know, it's going to be whatever leveled off within a week or two. Yeah, but at least in our area, with these smaller businesses, you know, Craig, I was actually not to change the subject on you or nothing, but I wanted to mention it that I always talk about where you find maps, old maps at, and I can't even remember where I found this one. I was actually looking for something else, and I came across a map from the U.S. Senate executive document in the 30th Congressional First Session of 1847 to 1848, serial number, something or other. But it's a map of 1846 in down here in Florida, and it's listing stuff on this map. Other than what I found was Dade Battlefield is listed on here. That's right down the street from me. And I had never even thought about this. I talk about the historical marker along the road right there, about a mile from the actual battlefield. Didn't realize until I looked at this map how close Fort Armstrong was. And it sounds silly, but I just guess never really looked at it. So I say we're always learning and everything, but they had a battle, you know, the battle in 1836, and a bunch of soldiers, you know, got massacred right there at Dade Battlefield, and then about a year later, they went after the Indians in the Battle of Wahoo, which is about 7 miles away. But they have this historical marker where I guess a detectorist found some officer medals, and they, you know, I guess I assumed or I was told that it was one of the officers that was at Dade Battlefield, but there used to be a fort right there, right where that, you know, I don't know if, I'm sure they know about it, somebody does, but I've never seen them do any kind of archaeology kind of thing. It's privately owned land. It's actually a big pasture, and there's a pond out there, probably about a 2-acre pond. and I always wanted to get permission to hunt that. It's owned by some rich guy over there on the it just never comes around. Pretty much people, there's some cattle on it and stuff like that. But I'm going to look into it again because, like I always tell people, I mean, there's nothing wrong with going back and asking for permission again. And it's been 15 years ago, back when the water, we were having a big drought down here in Florida, and actually that pond turned out to be about a puddle, a little bitty puddle. It dried up so much. Matter of fact, they mowed the pond because the grass was growing so bad, and they mowed around it to the point where, it's like I said, it wasn't even 10 feet across where the water was. And now it's all filled back in again. And that's why I wanted to hunt right there, because I showed that little pond or whatever, or little lake, whatever you want to call it, for many, many years on maps, but I had never found a detailed map, like this one. This was made by the military, I'm assuming. But yeah, you come across this new information every once in a while, or new to you, and you can kind of put things together. But the forts, there was several forts. It lists all of them in Florida that I can see on here. But even the names, and I'm trying to get to the doggone thing, and it's one of these weird maps, Craig, that you can expand and with your fingers like you do on a cell phone. But I can't copy the stupid thing to the page to show people yet. It just wants to copy the whole site. I was trying to get to it because it had some interesting stuff on there. But I was looking at how close the forts were. And, like I got trying to figure out a reference point here. Hang on a second. God darn it. I'm in the wrong part of the state. There it is, Withlacoochee River. Okay, here we go. But yeah, Withlacoochee River along it, if I can get the stupid thing to... there it is. Okay. Anyways, where they have the big battlefield, it has a cross swords, and then just north of it, and it has to be, probably within a half a mile, is where they got Fort Armstrong, and then to the left of that, about 7 miles out, is the Battle of Wahoo, which, I always read that there was only like a couple soldiers die in that, or that no soldiers died. They only killed Indians right there, but, now I have different information about it. And there was a guy in the 1940s, that had found a bayonet stuck in a tree. They have that on display down there at the museum and stuff. But this was a hot area. I see, like north of it, I call it Lake Panasoffkee, north of us about 10 miles. And the way they have it on the map, it's Panasoffkee. It's not even spelled the same, and it's two words. Or deep ditch. It's weird the way they name stuff. But they had a Fort McClare just southeast of there. I mean, I'm looking at Fort Cross that's out by me, but the river's running different. Or it looks different on this map. This is a pretty detailed map. It's not a hand-drawn map kind of thing. Well, it is, but it's a very good map as far as listing out names. I mean, it even has Withlacoochee, but the Withlacoochee Springs, a lot of y'all may have heard about that. It's down here in Florida, but it's not even spelled the same. And it has a CR after it. I don't know what the heck that means. But yeah, I mean, you come across these old maps. This one actually came out of the Library of Congress Geograph and Map Division, Washington, D.C. I don't even know how I came up with this one, but it was, I think I was doing a search on maps, Craig, and came across this one in the map search and clicked on it, and it has and I think I can get other information too on here, but yeah, it was just interesting that you can get a military type map and see where every, I got towns, I'm assuming they're towns, Augusta, it's just north of Weeki Springs, and then Chiswiska. Well, for a guy like me that has problems with names, that's a crazy name to say. But I think these are a lot of Indian names and stuff like that of towns. Even we have a town called Wildwood, just north of me, and it's a pretty big area. They got truck stops up there and everything else. I've got maps where that was called Negro Town. I mean, way back. They changed these names. Obviously, times changed and everything, but this was back in the 1800s. It was called that. All these towns had changed. Not all the towns, but I mean, there's a lot of them that had changed names for one reason or another. And even, we had an amusement park down here. Like not like Disney World, but I mean, it wasn't like a carnival. It was actually I think it called Silver Springs or Silver, something like that. But you wouldn't even know it's there, Craig. I mean, now it's a golf course, and I think Seco Electric owns a big building right there now. But I have the old billboard signs and stuff like that, pictures of the old billboard signs and stuff like that, where it was a full-blown amusement park, pretty much put there so people can go there before they head to Disney World type thing. Just a lot of history around here. And, it just, it's just real hard to find any kind of aerial maps, or I go by survey maps a lot of times, or topo maps, because they will put buildings on there, or homes, little dots for homes and stuff like that. And there's many of them along through here that people say, oh, there's never been a house there, but I got proof otherwise. They just don't remember. It's not been in the last 2 lifetimes or whatever. Probably prior to the 1940s is when those houses were taken down or burned down or whatever. So, you're dealing with down here is flatland most of the time. And, you're coming across stuff that's, I'm kind of going to get up there on minutes here. But, this is definitely a show we're going to have to do some more on. It's just a ton of information for sight reading and what you're looking at, and, where you got to go to get the information too, Craig. We need to do a show on that, because we have a lot of resources that we use regularly, and it's really hard with maps, especially. I mean, a lot of times they want you to buy the maps, or you can't zoom in far enough. You got, what do you call them, layover maps, where you can lay them over a brand new map and kind of match up stuff.
Well, the worst thing to me is a lot of the maps are old. They're
right.
just not like the ones we have nowadays, that are detailed, much more detailed. And, a lot of times you just see like a creek, line for a creek, and then like maybe a dot or two here and there that are house sites, and,
right.
There's no real information, but, just me exploring over the years, you kind of figure out where the guys are going to hunt. I mean, where they're going to put their, dwellings and stuff. They're not going to put them on the side of a hill. They're going to put them in a flat area, but sometimes you're in an area where it's really rocky, it's really hilly, and, you think, man, I'm finding buttons in here. Where do they hunt? And you got to just start looking to the high points where there's a flat area, and, that's where they were. They weren't going to be on the, they would work on the side of the hills. Like this one area I had was a mining area where they dug a lot of pig iron, and were melting. Starting in the late 1600s. But
well, they even have stuff on the maps too, Craig. I just looked on here and I didn't even notice this before. But where the withlacoochee River comes up and it actually ends. Well, they show it ending in the Gulf of Mexico, or I think that's what it is. I don't want to mess with the map right now because I wanted to. They have 2 other battles: Games Battle, GAM, like Major Games or whatever, February 1836, or 27th of February 1836. And then right on the south side of the Withlacoochee River, because it runs east and west right there, you had Chintz Battle. 31st of December 1835, and these were all east of Fort. I can't read the name because of the way it's printed on there. This is just north of Fort Cooper, and Lake Panasoffkee, northwest of Lake Panasoffkee. But I see the Homosassa River, Crystal River, but they all have the Indian names. Howard. No, I'm not even going to attempt it. It's an Indian name for a river. And then they got Block HD, I don't know, the blockhead. But all the little signs across swords, and they have something. There was some kind of Camp Izzard That's actually a name of a camp right there. So, you had camps, they were down through here, but the way they even spelled the name withlacoochee River is totally different than it is now. I've never seen a word with more E's and K's and O's in it. But but yeah, I mean, I guess I never saw a map like this before. Not this detailed. This many names on it. It kind of gives you perspective as far as I can't zoom in on it. I got another part on here. I'm gonna have to blow this map up a little bit and see if I can print it. It's just not letting me do a lot of stuff with it. It let me say expand and shrink, but that's about it. But all right. Well, anyways, guys, we're running over on time here, anyways. But yeah, we'll definitely do another show on this. This kind of thing. Just a lot of information out there, and it helps people that are new and old to the hobby. You can kind of refresh their memories, or give them memory on what they need to look for on sites, and follow the information, follow the little treasures you find, because these camps expanded out farther. Troops moved around. It may not even been known, where they were at. I mean, like during Civil War, Craig, you've always said you find stuff in weird places sometimes. So.
Yeah, they jammed these people, they ordered all these soldiers into certain areas, and said they're going to camp here, and sometimes the area was terrible, and then within a short time they would cut all the woods down. They didn't have any more firewood. You had to have firewood, in the middle of the winter, and so they would move the camp, maybe a mile away, at least a mile away usually. So sometimes, just wandering around, you would suddenly pick up a trail of relics leading to another camp.
Yeah,
and a lot of soldiers would go out and visit other camps, or they'd go out and visit house sites begging for food and water and stuff, and so
you just never know where you end up.
Yeah, but there's always stuff around house sites that are near camps,
right?
Because the soldiers went there. A lot of times they would dismantle the house and take all the stuff and build their huts with it.
Mm-hmm.
That happened down at this Georgia camp. The guy came back from a trip. He'd been gone for 2 weeks or something, and his house was gone. And then he hears up the hill from the house, he hears all this, banging and stuff. He goes up there, and the guys are using his door and his windows, and, he basically took his whole house down, and just built their homes, little huts for the winter.
Yeah.
But,
these guys are great on chat, Craig. McGavin McGregor. Geez, Craig, leave some stuff for us mere mortals. As far as my stuff, then Brandon, good morning, everyone. I played hooky today. Told them Derek said it was okay. That's right, brother. If they have any questions, let them call me. Nah. You guys are great. But, any rate, guys, I'm going to wrap it up for today. You guys have a great day. Brandon, I hope you find a bunch of relics, brother. Have fun out there. And you guys over in Australia and New Zealand and all those good places. And, you guys find some neat stuff. I know that Peter does over there in New Zealand. I mean, I don't know. It's ornate stuff. It's neat. I just don't even know what era it's from or anything like that. But I've been looking at the Instagram pages and stuff.
Yeah, I've been doing the same. It's beautiful, beautiful country, though.
Oh, yeah. All right, guys. Well, anyway, I said wrap it up. Anyways, Monday and Fridays, 8 or 7 a.m. Of course, we're on Thursday nights and Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Check us out. Be sure to like and follow. Check out our Patreon page. Become a supporter. We're going to do a show on that here really soon. Craig and I have been talking about it, what our goals are, what we'd like to be able to do, how we want to involve everybody, and kind of explain it a little bit better. We did one show on that already, but we were kind of not unprepared, but we're getting used to it now, what we want to do, how we want to do it, and involving more and more people with our thoughts or whatever about moving on with it, and getting it going the way we want it, and trying to figure out the system of it. But at any rate, we'll do that in a future show. Thanks for listening, guys. Be careful going to work or wherever you're headed. Be safe out there. Keep digging, and God bless.